This is a New York City bike, one of the 39,000 currently in circulation. And in a city as big as this one, we need fast transportation to get around, whether it be the car, the subway, or a bike like this. But the big difference about this bike is carbon emissions. And Citi Bike has been doing a good job of providing bike service to millions of people in New York. Ever since 2013, Citi's bike's growth has been exponential, with this summer expected to be even bigger than the last. In its 10-year, three-phase plan from 2013 to 2023, it got its humble starts in just the most expensive parts of Manhattan and Brooklyn, and ending up in the majority of the inner city. There's even some parts in Brooklyn and Queens still being constructed to this day. And yet, despite Citi Bikes releasing no carbon emissions, making it the cleanest mode of transportation, and the fact that it's continuously expanding throughout the city, it still has a lot of problems. Oh no.
A woman riding a Citi bike was struck and killed by a truck on the Upper East Side today.
It's difficult to afford a bike or find a place to lock one up.
If you take a Citi bike to work or use them to get around, get ready to pay more. The bike sharing program is raising its fees here in the city.
And I'm just like, there's like 50 bikes here, but none of them are available.
So, in an attempt to fix some of this, in 2022, Mayor Adams made a $900 million plan to attempt to fix Citi Bike.
We're the largest amount, the historical investment in making our streets safe, and we are committing $904 million over the next 5 years to help build critical infrastructure.
It promised hundreds of protected bike paths. It promised hundreds of e-bikes, and yet it has not worked. In the past 3 years, we've only seen 31.9 miles of protected bike paths and no sign of any more charging stations or e-bikes added to circulation. And even if some were added, it's not like we could know because the DOT doesn't post anything. Or at least no information about e-bikes and e-charging stations. But at least what the Department of Transportation has given us is a plan for how they could frame plans in the future. Maybe that's something we could use to build off for our plan. But before I go back to hating on the Department of Transportation for a little bit and go back to our bike, I do want to show you a case study of what has actually worked in other cities. Here. Whoa, now we're inside. Montreal is a good example of a city where bike paths have actually worked out. It's first in the North American Copenhagen's Index, which is basically an index that says which North American cities are doing the best at improving their bike transportation. Montreal has 662 miles of bike path, with an upcoming 119 miles they're currently working on that are going to be express paths, basically the e-bikes of New York City. And this is only being done in a $30 million a year plan for 5 years. It doesn't cost that much to make a city with good transportation. There's also this map you can look at. I can put the website name in the description, which shows where all the bike paths and bike docks are in Montreal. Notice how it covers the entire city. If you go back to what I showed you earlier for New York, it really only has the inner boroughs. It has only half of Queens, half of Brooklyn, and no Staten Island whatsoever. That needs to change. So, back to New York. How can we actually fix our situation and build off that 2022 plan to build something that we can move forward with to actually help with climate change? Well, 2022, while it did fail, did leave us with a good solid plan that I was mentioning earlier. And I want to read out to you what the display vision was for them originally. New York City will be a place where everybody has access to reliable and environmentally friendly transportation options, and to safe and welcoming streets and public spaces. Cars and trucks will be sustainably fewer and cleaner. So how do we actually do that? At the end of the day, what we're really looking for is more docks to put your bikes, more protected bike paths so they don't injure cars or pedestrians, and charging stations so e-bikes are more convenient to use. What I also have in this paper, which I'll put up here, is the 4-part plan that the NYC DOT said is useful for any plan making. Here are the steps they had. Step 1, identify goals. We just did that. Good to go. 2, develop program recommendations and short-term project locations. This means basically choosing where you're deciding to build and who's going to commission what you're doing. And lastly, 3 and 4 is draft legislation and finalizing a plan. But the issue with New York City's legislation is it's all regulatory. There's no legislation currently for city bikes on how to actually expand it and actually help the people that are using it. Basically, we need legislation that can actually expand docks and bikes. So here's my proposition of what a 2025 plan for the NYC DOT would be to get things moving. I feel like they already did a pretty good job with identifying goals, talking about more docks, more bikes, more protected paths, so I think we're clear to already finish off step 1. Next, for step 2. Location-wise, we need to focus on the outer parts of the borough. Do I really need to show you the map again? The outer parts of the borough simply do not have docks. Like, I can show you the map on screen. Zero, none. We need to keep going if we want to have actual bikes in our city. Program recommendation wise, we need an actual commission in the DOT that is set to fill out this plan and have the same people working on it until it's done. It has driven me crazy during this research process to find out that the reason most of these plans have failed has not been because we haven't been trying, it's because the commissioner changes over and over and over again. If we can have one commissioner and one committee continuing to work on this, we can see real change and real things start to grow. And now the hard part, actually making legislation. If you wanted a plan for New York similar to Montreal, but expand it for the sheer size of New York, it would look something like $1.25 billion over the course of the next 10 years. This would fully build out the rest of Queens and Brooklyn, and bring a lot of bikes over to Staten Island as well. Now let's talk actual numbers. How many stations do we have? How many charging stations? Well, currently in New York, we see 2,800 stations across. So it would be reasonable to double that up to 5,600 with a reasonable amount of charging stations, maybe half of them charging stations or 2/3. Furthermore, there are currently only 600 miles of protected bike lanes, meaning those little lines that I showed you earlier. The goal would be to increase the amount of total lanes up to something around 2,000 or 2,500, and the amount of protected bike lanes to be almost or more than 2/3 of that amount. I cannot stress this enough, protected bike lanes are not only so helpful for the drivers of bikes, but also drivers of cars and pedestrians who are walking down the street right next to these bike lanes. So that's it, right? I've told you what can be done, and without legislation, we're not gonna see any real change happen. But no, that's not it. Because if that was the end of the story, there would be nothing we could do. Me or you or anyone else watching, most chances you're not a politician about to sign legislation. So this shouldn't only be thought about what can be done in this 4-step plan, it's also about what can we do. Well, the most obvious thing you can do is just show that you care. There's no reason for actual legislation to be passed if we're not out here using city bikes and using the bike lanes that are given to us. And if you really want to show effort, you can become a lobbyist. You can negotiate with the government to make better deals for us that not only help politicians and the elites, but help the everyday who use bikes like you and me. That's just a couple of the many examples I have. You can make your own videos, you can host bike groups, you can really do anything to help spread bikes across the city. All right, I have a cheesy wrap up, so I'm putting you on the bike. At the end of the day, climate change is a looming threat, and it's going to affect all of us, whether we're currently working to fight against it or not. In this proposed plan, everyone is a stakeholder. Every resident will feel the effects of a city run more on bikes than cars, but I believe it would be a change for the better. Bikes are one of the best ways we have to transport ourselves without hurting the environment. So why not take this ecosystem New York City built with Citi Bike and make it actually useful? But yet, a single person choosing a bike ride over driving isn't going to make a difference. It takes a group effort, meaning everyone needs to get involved. But a group effort takes resources, it takes time, it takes care. The only question is, how much do you care? Thanks for watching.